Adam, this was not a particularly noteworthy game in the sense that something remarkable happened. I just thought it was a very workmanlike, consistent effort from Carolina, and maybe that in and of itself is noteworthy for this particular team. I think it has been searching for consistency. Hubert Davis has talked a lot about his desire to see a full 40 minutes. He felt like he had seen his team play better for halves or 30 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it might be, but hadn't seen it for a full 40. And this was pretty close. I think Carolina's better than Cal, but they did what they should do against a team that they are better than. It was 2-0 Cal, then it was 4-2, I think, Cal. And then from that point forward, that was it. Carolina took the lead and never really looked back. I mean, it in the first half lived between about a 6 to 10 point lead, and in the second half lived in that 18 to 22 point range for the Tar Heels. They opened this up pretty consistently. Defensively, another good game for Carolina. I do think the Tar Heel defensive stats and performance, they are improving. They are not playing as good offensive teams as they saw earlier in the year, so that's part of it. But they're also playing well. And there's no question that Andrei Stojakovic for Cal, who averages better than 20 points per game, he had been averaging better than 24 points per game against conference teams. He is an excellent player, and Carolina did a terrific job against him. Had his worst night of the year. He was 3 of 13, 0 of 5 from 3, did not shoot a free throw. He came in as the second most prolific free throw shooter in the conference, behind only Jameer Watkins from Florida State. He had taken 113 free throws in 16 games. He didn't take any, and he finished with 6 points. And so Seth Trimble in particular did a great job, but he wasn't the only one. Elliot Cadeau guarded him nicely. Drake Powell did a good job against him. The Tar Heels threw some double teams at him when he would get down into the post. So Carolina did a really nice job against a really good player, and Cal just didn't have enough options outside of Stojakovic to really be able to consistently stay in the game. They have some good players. A freshman, Jeremiah Wilkinson's had a good year. He did not have a good night. Blackshear is a good player transfer, but he didn't have a good night. And that's because Carolina did a nice job. So really good defensive performance. Tar Heels struggled on the glass early. I thought they stabilized that in the second half. Cal is one of the best. I think they're right up there with SMU as far as offensive rebounds per game and offensive rebounding percentage. They're in the top 2 or 3 in the league. Heels were in trouble there early, did much better as the game went along. And offensively, a very balanced performance. Ian Jackson kind of quietly finished with 20. Hubert Davis said it after the state game. You'd think, oh, man, Ian probably had 11 or 13, and you look down, he had 20. Elliot Cadeau had 15, 12 for Seth Trimble. So a very balanced, consistent performance, and at the end of the day, a relatively easy victory, 79-53.
Yeah, it's a 26-point ACC win, which history tells us you don't get very many of those. It's also against Cal, which history tells us has not been in the ACC.
Yeah.
So I thought Cal looked like a team that just flew across the country to play the game. They had to call timeout 2 minutes into the game because they weren't prepared for Carolina's pace. I mean, they probably prepared, but they couldn't handle it. We talked about this some after the game on the show, but I thought that was the second straight new ACC team that hasn't looked ready for Carolina's tempo. Elliot Cadeau did a great job of creating that tempo with some outlet passes, like instantaneous outlet passes, and his teammates were running the floor expecting those passes. Carolina's always good when they do that. The defense on Stojakovic was very good and made him look very average, which the numbers say he is not. So it's a solid win over a team of uncertain quality that you had to get. But here's another thing we've talked about lately. You got to blow out these teams, and the Tar Heels did. And that's something they haven't always done against teams that I think might be similar to this. And Wednesday night they did it.
Yeah, I thought your point about the pace was a really good one. That was on the Rapid Reactions version. Again, that is video-only show that happens on the night of home games. You can always check that out. That includes my interview with Coach Davis after the game. Adam, if the Tar Heels win, has an interview with the player as well. This particular game Adam spoke to Seth Trimble, and we'll get to Seth in just a minute. But I thought your point about the pace was really good. And look, Cal's not a great defensive team, and the Tar Heels made them look that way. I mean, they were pushing it pretty consistently in transition after makes, misses, all the things that you hear Hubert Davis say that he wants in that area. Thought the Tar Heels did a good job with that in this particular game. It was nice to see Seth Trimble look a little bit more like the guy that we've seen this year, Adam, and totally understandable that he was feeling his way back into the action. Before the holiday break, Seth was averaging 15 points and right around 5 rebounds per game. So he then goes on the holiday break, gets hurt in practice after the holiday break, misses another week and a half to 2 weeks. So you have a fair amount of time there where he didn't play. And so he's been back for the state game and the game before state, which was SMU. Yes, SMU. And he was out there and did some, had some big moments and nice plays, but didn't 100% look like he was kind of comfortable back in the mix. I thought he looked comfortable. He was active in this game, had 3 steals, and was a part of this, a nice part of this victory. Got the free throw line, made all his free throws where he's been very good this year. So just a nice performance and good to see him back in the mix.
This is the 3rd year we've seen Seth Trimble play college basketball now.
Mm-hmm.
The variable with him, it appears, is always going to be finishing at the rim. His first year didn't do that very often and didn't have a great year. Last year started to do it more towards the end of the year and had a little better year. This year, start of the year, finishing all the time and looked great. Got hurt, maybe a little hesitant to go back in there and mix it up with some of the bigger guys. First couple games back wasn't as good. Wednesday night, he didn't always convert it, but as you said, he always got to the free throw line where he's, I think, 6 for 6. And that's as good as finishing almost. So I think as he gets back into that rhythm of being who he was at the start of the year, he can get to the rim. He's more athletic than the guy guarding him 95% of the time. So does that turn into points? That's the question about how productive he is. And I think he'll continue to be very productive.
Adam, I don't have a ton more. It was good to see Elliot Cadeau be aggressive and have success offensively. I think Jalen Washington's growth, you saw some of that benefit Elliot Cadeau on some of those drives. Teams have to be more wary, I think, of Jalen Washington. And you saw Cadeau be able to finish once he gets by his guy, which he's very good at doing as well. There wasn't as much resistance at the rim because I think some of Cal's big guys were concerned about Washington and Lubin, who had a nice game, being able to get a pass and finish or get an offensive rebound or whatever it might be. And so Cadeau ended up with some easy buckets at the rim. I don't have a ton else about this game specifically. I think maybe big picture-wise, you mentioned this. I mean, these are just games that Carolina, for the season in total, that you need to win. And Carolina did it. I mean, the Tar Heels did what they needed to do on Wednesday night, and now they move forward to Stanford on Saturday.
I think Washington putting on tape that he can make that mid-range jumper, which he did 3 times or so.
Yeah, he played well. In the first half in particular, he was he was good the whole game, but in the sense that you are speaking of, offensively, he was active in the first half.
That'll help.
Yes.
Because teams will have to defend that. Jalen Withers in the second half gave Carolina some good minutes, and Hubert Davis singled him out when he talked to you as one of the guys who was really important in the second half, energy-wise, and he made a corner 3, which sometimes he does. So you got what you needed, which was a win, and you got some individual performances to build on.
So the Tar Heels' 4th consecutive wins, their longest win streak of the year. They're now 12-6 overall and 5-1 in conference play. And, Adam, that leads to Stanford coming in this weekend. Of course, the Cardinal have, just like the Bears, have made a long cross-country trip. They started – and the way – I don't know if this is happening every week for Cal and Stanford, but basically they travel somewhere and they play 2 games that are kind of close to there. So – maybe they would do like Louisville and Notre Dame or something, or Pitt and Boston College or something. In this particular instance, Stanford played Wake Forest on Wednesday and now is playing Carolina on Saturday. Cal played Carolina on Wednesday and is playing NC State on Saturday. Last week, those 2 teams, Virginia and Virginia Tech, both went out to California. Virginia played Cal midweek. Virginia Tech played Stanford midweek, then they flipped and played the other one on the weekend. So I don't know if that's happening every weekend, but I think that's every week. But I think that's a general idea of for however long this marriage between the West Coast teams and the ACC continues. That's probably how the scheduling is going to work.